There we go. Alrighty. So welcome to August 2022 JumpRope update for secondary and specials teachers. Our goals for today are to set up your grade books for this year by adding indicators using a course plan, and that will, oh yes, sorry Lloyd, I will give you guys, thank you. Let me put the link for this in the chat first before I keep going. Share. Copy link. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The brain fog is real. Okay, so I just put the link in the chat so you guys can hop on the slides. There's not a lot, you'll see. But anyway, so I'll go back to this. So we're going to set up grade books for this year by adding indicators using a course plan. Those are already set up in there with all of the priority indicators that PLC groups identified during last year's curriculum work. And you're also going to be able to add the pre-made habits of work assessments for your school and role. And they vary a little bit depending on frequency, and if you are like elementary specials, for example, you have a different set of expectations than the secondary classroom teachers. So I'll go into all of that. Peter, question?
Sorry, yes, thank you. Sorry, Alina. So
No
we
problem.
had thank you. We had a discussion in our affinity group just now about, I know the two of us spoke about it last Friday regarding transferable skills, because apparently one school, they must use them, another school they don't. So I'm just wondering if do we have to use them, or should we just focus on our power standards?
At the SU level, there is no expectation to be using transferable skills in JumpRope for this year. This year, the focus is on using the priority indicators and then reporting on the habits of work as outlined on the expectations document. And that is it. The transferable skills are still all loaded into JumpRope because there are a couple of courses and or schools or individuals that may need to still access them for different things. So they are still in there. You can still choose to tag and use the transferable skills, but as an SU, there's not an expectation for this school year around reporting transferable skills in JumpRope.
And that's been relayed to the various administrations?
It should have been. I can't speak for what's been going on at admin meetings, but that when we go, we'll see on the expectations document exactly what the expectations are. So I'll come back to that. Okay. Okay, and we're going to add in the habits of work have been set up for everybody for this year, so you don't have to create all of those assessments and tag all the indicators. You'll be able to just pull them in. All right, so there's two new pieces we're going to learn this year. One is called course plans. That's just the title of what they're called in JumpRope. A course plan is really a list of indicators. So for our SU, those are the priority indicators. So when in JumpRope you see course plan, that's really the list of priority indicators. So this has the little step-by-step for those of you guys who like to have the directions to refer to. It tells you what to click on. I'm going to show you as well. And then the next slide has the in words description of how to do the habits of work. Again, so for those of you who want to have this handy, you can print these couple of slides if you want to. The other nice thing about doing this is you only really have to do all of this setup at the beginning of the year. And then if you are at one of the high schools using semesters, when you change classes for the spring, you can either set those up now or you can set them up in January. But that's it. You don't have to keep coming back to this process over and over. This is the updated JumpRope expectations. This is just the front page of it. There's back from the slides. The top is a link, and then the document itself is also a link. So I'm going to click that, and that will bring you to.
Yeah, I'm in a meeting.
that will bring you to our JumpRope expectations for this year. And let me zoom in a little bit. I'm going to go a little slowly because okay, so I'm going to focus on the 2 boxes on the right hand side because that's the group that I have. So first of all, for habits of work, if you are an elementary specials teacher, understanding that you have a million different sections in your gradebook because you teach every single, for the most part, you guys tend to teach like every single class in the building. Rather than last year, you guys were entering them every other week, like the elementary classroom teachers. For this year, you can put in your habits of work just once a month. So you'll see that when we go to pull it in, there's a special course called Habits of Work Elementary Specials. That way you will have that pre-set up for you. No problem. For middle and high school teachers, the Corey Valley teachers are still going to have the same rubric and the same expectations as last year, so they will be weekly. But again, I set them up for you, so you'll be able to see when you go in there. There's one that's set up that's called Habits of Work Fall for the fall semester and Habits of Work Spring for the spring semester. And I'll show you all of that once we hop in there. Something I do just want to highlight in here is that the how indicators that are in JumpRope should not be tagged to anything else. They're just part of that habits of work that you'll pull in, but please do not tag them onto specific assignments. Though that is a functionality of the program, that's not how RSU intends to utilize them, so please don't do that. I'm not going to go into that right now, but if anybody has questions about that and wants to talk to me about it later, feel free. All right. The next 2 boxes, the formative assessment and summative assessments, this is, again, fairly similar to what we had last year. But again, we kind of, for example, in secondary, we're recording 1 to 2 minimum weekly formatives in each of our classes. We should have at least 3 formatives for a priority indicator before we give a summative for that indicator. For elementary specials, again, knowing that you guys have a very different schedule in terms of how often you see students, you don't have the same weekly requirement. It's just you should have at least 2 to 3 formatives before you go on to a summative in whatever time frame that happens. So knowing that for a lot of elementary specials, you may only see a given class once a week. So that's only 4 times a month. So you may not be doing a formative with them every single time, and that's okay. So we took out that per week requirement in the elementary special section. Oh, Peter, so you got a question?
Yeah, sorry. So I'm looking at you have to have at least 3 formatives for each power standard before a summative, or at least 3 formatives before any summative, as long as those formatives have the indicators you wish to put on a summative.
To make sure that I'm understanding the phrasing on this, if I'm going to give a summative assessment on indicators A and B, then before I give that assessment, that summative assessment that's on the indicators A and B, I need to have formatively assessed indicator A 3 times and formatively assessed indicator B 3 times. Depending on my content area and my indicators, those may have been 3 formative assessments that all looked at A and B, A and B, A and B, and then on the summative, I'm looking at A and B. Or it could be that I did 3 formatives on A, 3 formatives on B, and then gave a summative on both. Either of those would work.
So, in other words, say I've chosen 2 power standards or 2 indicators for the summative. That means I have to have at least 6 formatives, 3 per each.
No, because you can have a formative address multiple. It's like if you give a formative that looks at both indicators, then you could do just 3.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
The idea is we want to make sure that students have a chance to practice and see how they're doing before going on to a summative. So the expectation is to have at least 3 formative experiences before they go to a summative. All right, and then for summatives, ideally there should be more than one summative assessment for each indicator by the end of a course. Recognizing that, again, for elementary specials, we just kind of changed the language to ideally students should have multiple opportunities to demonstrate mastery for each indicator by the end of the year, knowing that across our different schools, you guys have different amounts of time with kids. So we wanted to just change that to reflect that a little bit. For secondary, this is the idea of, let's see, it says here, students should have multiple opportunities to demonstrate mastery for each indicator. So for example, if you're giving a unit test as a summative, you should also have some other type of summative that you're going to use to address that indicator. Again, this is going to vary depending on context and content area. In some contents, you may have an indicator that you're summatively assessing in September, and then you're summatively assessing it again in October because that's just, it makes sense to do it that way. And then there are others that, oh, hold on, we're getting some feedback. Okay. There might be other indicators that you're only going to address once throughout the whole course. If that's the case, then please summatively assess them in 2 different ways. That way they have multiple ways to demonstrate their learning. The last page has general expectations for kind of for everybody. When you're scoring summative assessments, please keep some sort of copies of those. That's going to, again, vary depending on your context. So for some of you, it may be keeping a set of file folders in your classroom, and whenever students do a summative assessment, after you go over them with the students, you recollect them and put them in their class file folders. Some people, if you're doing all of the stuff through Google Classroom and everything's digital, well, then everything is already saved there, so that's nice and easy to go. There could also be, if it's like a more physical product that students are creating, you can take pictures of it and save it. If you're in the secondary realm, students need to be documenting evidence as part of their PLPs. So that is that's one of the reasons to hang on to some of this summative work. But then also for any questions that might arise around student scores, it's good practice to save a copy of things until the end of a course. If it's something that you are planning to send home, just have some sort of pictures or copies of it, so that way you can just keep track of those for yourself. And talk with your coaches if you want help setting up a system for that, if you don't already have one. And then I'll come to the question in a moment. The other piece I'm just going to add here is that for secondary, this is just for, you'll have to check in each building. Final scores in JumpRope should then be entered into Infinite Campus. I know this is going to be the case for all of the high school courses because that's what feeds their transcripts. It's going to vary by school if 7-8 also puts in their grades. Probably whatever practice you were using in the past in terms of entering grades for 7-8, you would use that same process. All right, and now I know there's a couple of chats and questions that popped up. So Carol, you've got a question.
Yeah, in context of music, a lot of the formative assessments will be, listening. So if I just keep, if I make a copy of my seating chart with some kind of indication on there, that is good enough.
Yeah, and you don't have to keep stuff for all of the formatives. It's just for the summatives.
Okay, so
and even then, something like that would be fine. So like
Okay.
if they had to play something for you and you were assessing it using a rubric, keeping a copy of that rubric for yourself,
Okay.
just so that at some later time, if it comes back up, you can refer back to that if
Okay.
needed.
All right. That's what I thought. Thank you.
Yep. And then I see there's a couple chat questions. So I see jump rope question. Do we still have the decaying average? We were told it might be removed. Yes, we do have decaying average for everything. So all indicators are set to the decaying average. Need to keep copies of paper assignments or take pictures. What's the purpose of this? So it's not every single thing. It's just summative assessments. And it's to, there's two parts of it. One is so that students have the copies on hand to use as evidence for in their PLPs. We know students, they don't always have good systems to keep track of stuff. So this is kind of an extra fallback for that. But then also on the other hand, if there is a question about students' grades, and it applies a little bit more at the high school level, questions sometimes come up about students' grades, especially if it's coming down to them passing or not passing a course. It's good practice to have to keep copies of summative assessments on hand. That way you can reference them if a course grade comes into question. So that's the purpose behind it. I'd be happy to talk about it more at another time if you would like. And now I see Mary Margaret, you've got a question.
Yes. I use a lot of formative by having the kids use their individual boards. And, so I'm going to have to put that up online.
You don't have to enter every single formative assessment into JumpRope. You're supposed to put in a minimum of 1 per week per class for secondary classes, but you don't have to put in every single one. So if you do one every single day, you would just pick one from the week that you want to enter. You could put them all in, but you don't have to.
Okay.
All right. And Megan?
Hi, so I'm in JumpRope right now, putzing around, and I see the course standards and I see that all the indicators are in them already. But when I searched for habits of work, the only thing that came up was like the 5 different breakdowns.
You're ahead of me.
I can't. Oh, okay. We're not there yet. Great. Never mind.
We're not there yet. This is a great segue. If you guys have more questions, jot them down somewhere. I want to make sure that I show everybody the JumpRope part of this. And then we'll come back to those. So at this point, hang on to your questions. We'll come back to those. All right. The other thing I just want to highlight before I go away from this document, though, is that there is an SU expectation that JumpRope is updated at least once a week. So please make sure that you are updating that weekly. This bullet here, progress reports being sent home 8 times per year for all grades. We are working with tech in the background to get that set up. So it's something that can be auto-generated from the main office rather than you guys all having to make PDFs of progress reports and email them to individual families. The system can do it in bulk. So we're working on getting that set up for this year. So we will have that set up before the first one has to go home. So that's why it just says there, this will take the form of an email. So don't panic if you read that and think you have to make 1 million progress reports. And I think the rest of that's probably pretty self-explanatory. Okay. I'm going to switch gears now and hop over into JumpRope itself. Before I go there. My JumpRope looks a little wonky because I did a whole bunch of setup things. So I was wondering if one of you guys would be willing to have me ninja into your account to use you as a demonstration, and I will set your classes up for you.
You can use
one of your classes.
I'll take that.
Darn.
Okay. I heard Allie first, so Allie, I will do one of yours. And then Mike, I saw you as well because I'm going to do a specials as well. So I'll do Allie for a secondary classroom, and Mike, I'll use one of yours for doing a specials example. Okay. So here, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment just so that I can do the do the ninja part. That way I'm not putting up all sorts of names. And once. Sorry, questions? Okay. Oh, and Mary, I see your hand is up. Is that still from before, or is that a new question? Okay. All right, now I will share the screen again. There we go. All right, so I am now Allie Kennedy, and I am going to set up my classes this year. So I'm going to start off with Math 7 because that one looks pretty nice and straightforward. So I would then click on the Plan tab of that class. And when you go in on the Plan tab, everything's going to be all blank. We're going to go to Create in the upper right corner. And the first thing we need to do is bring in the indicators. So just like in the past, I'm going to say indicator from bank. This is going to bring up the newly updated indicator bank. So this indicator bank now only has the priority indicators in it. All of that old stuff that was cluttering up the space has been retired. It is not deleted, but it is now considered retired. So it's still there if we need it, but it's not getting in the way anymore. So in the past, you had to use the filters and go find your indicators and be referencing things. To help out, we set things up. So across the top here, you'll see some different tabs. One of them is called Course Plans. So since this is a Math 7 class, I'm going to go to Course Plans. And then I'm going to find 7th grade math. You can either scroll or you can come over here and search by content area, but it's not that big of a list. So I'm just going to come here and find 7th grade math. And I'm going to check the box next to 7th grade math. In parentheses, it says 15 because those are the 15 priority indicators for that class. If I wanted to, I could click the down arrow and see them all, but they're all there. So I check off 7th grade math. I click select in the bottom right corner. And then voila, there are the 7th grade priority indicators, all set and ready to be tagged. The other thing you'll need to do is to bring in your habits of work. This one's going to be similar. So we're still going to go to create, but this time the habits of work are set up instead of as course plans, they are set up as assessments. That way they already have the dates with them. If we set up habits of work as a course plan, then they won't have dates. So to give you a few less things to click, I set them up already as assessments for you. So here I would go to assessment from bank to find my habits of work. And then they're set up by me. So you want to come here instead. Don't go to course plans because this one's a little different. For habits of work, we're going to go to other teachers' classes. And when you look at other teachers' classes, you're going to see some habits of work options that are unique to your school. So for example, at Proctor High School, where Allie teaches, they are only secondary. So there are only those two options. There's just the fall and the spring. So Allie, this class runs full year, right? So since this is a full year section, I'm going to check off both. That way she has her habits of work preloaded for the year and we can hide them so that they're not in your way. But that way they're just in there and ready to go. If you're just teaching a fall class or just a spring, you would pick one or the other, depending on your school and your role. I'm going to go through and do an example of this for specials as well. So Bailey, so you've got a question. Is it related to this?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, thanks. So I teach like 2 classes, right? Math and science that are both in JumpRope. So I feel like it would make sense to do habits of work for like, I see the kids, for that hour and a half time. So would I be assessing habits of work for math and for science, or would it, because I feel like it should be together, but then which part in JumpRope would I put that in? Would it be in math or would it be in the science?
That is a good Rutland Town specific question that I will come back to because I don't remember off the top of my head right now, but I will check on that for you.
Okay, thank you.
So hang tight for the moment.
Okay.
All right. So I'm just going to go back to, all right, so Allie has a full year class. She checked off both of these. I'm going to click select in the bottom right. It says confirmation, you're about to add 36 assessments. Are you sure you wish to proceed? Note, you can only edit and delete assessments one at a time after they're added to your class. This is warning you because if you do this and you bring them all in and you forget and you bring them in again, you then have to go through and delete the duplicates. So Allie, don't set up this one again. So I'm going to click OK. It's going to process the 36 records. That means that throughout the entire course of the year, as a secondary teacher, Allie is going to be assessing their habits of work 36 times, once per week over the course of the year. I do have them set up as units quarterly so that, again, you can hide stuff. So for first quarter, we've got that one open for now. I can click on the other units just to shrink them and get them out of the way. So that way it shrinks it down in your list there. Same thing goes, I'm not going to go over to the gradebook tab because that's where the kid names are going to start popping up. But on the gradebook page, I know most of you are familiar with, at the top, you can use the little arrows to shrink things down. That way they're still there for you and ready to go. The dates are all set up. So like the first habits of work, you'll see it says 8/31 to 9/9. These were all set up ahead of time for you. So like this week, there's only 3 days. And then we've got there's that 3-day week, 4-day week, 5-day week. When do we do it? Because there's a vacation. What do we do? Those questions come up like around Thanksgiving time. What do we do for habits of work? Follow what it says here. So if I go ahead into quarter 2 where Thanksgiving is, you'll see that there's one set up here for 11/21 to 12/2. So because there's that little partial funky week, it just tells you that's the period of time that you are assessing and you put it in on that last day. Okay. Thank you, Allie, for letting me use your 7th grade math as an example. And then Mike, I think you were the one who said use you as an example as well. I just want to check before I go in.
Yeah, go ahead. You can use me.
Okay, cool.
That sounded really awkward. Yeah, go ahead.
I know, sorry.
I get that all the time though. So come on, people, chuckle. It's Monday, halfway through the first time. Your faces already look like it's June 15th. I wish it was.
All right, so I've got Mike's jump rope up now, so I will pull that back over. All right. So specials teachers, this is probably going to be familiar to you, having a million different little gradebook cards because you have one for every single class that you teach, which again is part of why we moved your work habits to just be once a month. So I'm going to hop on one of these. Let's do PE5. So I'm going to go in here.
Yeah.
I'm going to go into PE5. I'm going to hit plan. Oh, that one's already set up.
I just did it.
Oh, beautiful. Which one shall I do?
Why don't
then?
you show? But make sure I did it right,
Okay.
and then
let's see.
how I can attach other classes to the same. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So that you did this
Like
one
all
right.
my
So,
phys ed would get the same indicators.
yeah. So unfortunately, we have to pull the course plans in to each one.
Oh.
But I I don't mind helping with that, especially for those of you guys in my building. But if there's anybody else who wants help with just pulling stuff in, because the coaches can ninja in, we can help with pulling stuff in. We just can't do it for everybody all the time, but I can help out. But yes, you did set this up correctly. So I'm going to go to a different one. Is the other PE5 also set up?
No, it is not. But it
Okay,
would be
so
the same.
It will be the same.
That was my
yes.
question, is being able to, as you're creating one, create them all. So you're not going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, because my 5 through 8 is going to look identical. But if I have to go
So
back
when-
and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth every time.
Just this time, after
Okay.
this, when you're creating your assessments that you're doing with your class,
Then I can do it.
then you can check off as many of them as you want and
Okay.
populate it into all of them. Yes.
That makes sense.
Yep. Okay. So from here, for specials folks, I'm going to come up to the upper right, create indicator from bank. So first step is get your indicators. So this is where we're going to use course plans. And this is 5th grade PE. So I'm going to scroll down and find 5th grade PE. I'm going to check it off. I'm going to hit select. And that's going to load in the 5th grade PE indicators. Now I've got to add my work habits. So create and work habits are going to be under assessment. So that's going to be assessment from bank. And for these, now you'll notice that because Mike had set up one of the classes, the My Current Classes section will now have stuff in it. Just to be on the safe side though, if you start pulling from the other classes, you might start duplicating things that you don't want. So it's a good idea to just always pull it from mine while you're doing a setup. That way you know you're only bringing one set in each time. So at Rutland Town, there's 2 different options. There's the classroom core set of habits of work, and then there's the specials set. That has either the every other day or the monthly, because that's what is happening in their building. Those of you guys who are at West Rutland, you probably have 4 different options. You will see elementary specials, and then middle school, high school fall, and middle school, high school spring. So depending on what you're doing, you would want to pick from those. So since Mike is specials, he's going to check off this one and then select, and that will bring those in. And there we go. So here are all of the work habits for the year. And so you'll see September, October, November, December. So it's just once per month. And then those probably, yeah, and those I've got added down here. All right. So at this point, I'm seeing all sorts of chats and messages and hands and stuff. If you are somebody who is like, yep, I got this, I got what I need, good to go, please feel free to use the remainder of the time this session. I'm going to stop sharing. Let's see. Let me just double check timing. Yes, this is the session that leads up to lunch. So lunch starts at 11:30. So please feel free to use the remainder of this session time to work on setting up your own jump rope classes. If you are somebody who has, oh, and thank you, Sandy. Proctor teachers, Proctor high school teachers, please stay on. I have something I have to show you. Everybody else, if you have questions or you want me to go over it specifically, I will stay on with you. I just wanted to acknowledge that. So those of you guys who are all set, feel free to hop off the Google Meet at this point. And thank you, Sandy, for putting that in the chat. All right, I will use someone else this time. Which Proctor teacher would like me to do one of their classes as another example? Ben, all right. Ben, do you have any of them that are already set up that I shouldn't go into? I can't hear you, you're on mute.
They're all set up, but is it something that you're adding?
It's something I'm adding, yeah. So that's fine then, yeah. Okay. All right. So Proctor High School, for you guys, for your literacy work that you're doing, I got that set up for you. So I'm going to hop into Ben's first one here, the civics class. So we're going to add something additional. So create indicator from bank again. We're going to go back to course plans. And then from here, when you scroll down in the list and go down to the P's section, there's one down here called Proctor High School Literacy, and it has 3 indicators. Those are the 3 Common Core anchor standards that Jen had made sure that we had set up for you guys in there, that all classes across all of Proctor High School are going to have those 3 literacy standards to use to tag for the literacy work. And so any of those like literacy common assessments and things you're doing, these are the 3 indicators you'll be using. So add these to all of your classes. So Proctor High School Literacy, and then select, and it'll add those for you. There they are, down here. So there's 2 for reading and 1 for writing. So those are those 3. These start with CCRA, and then the R.1, just to differentiate them. So this is the College and Career Readiness Anchor, that's what the CCRA is, which is a little bit different from if you're an ELA teacher, you've got your, like 7, like reading for 7th grade, there's reading 1, and for 8th grade, there's reading 1. This is an anchor. So this is the overarching one for the common literacy assessment work that will help for looking at the across the school data for reporting.
So Alina, we're adding these even in our 7th and 8th grade classes though.
Yes, I believe they're in, I just put down Proctor High School Literacy as the course plan, but I believe, and Sandy, I think you're on here, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's everybody.
Linda's giving me a thumbs up.
Linda's giving a thumbs up. All right, there you go.
Yeah, Ben, my understanding it's for everyone. And I think even for ELA teachers, I don't know if you guys can hear me. It's also for us to record those common assessments, just so that the data can be gathered on those.
Yep. Yeah, and so that's why I differentiated the code there for you guys. So that way you can tell which ones are the ones for the common literacy work. So the CCRA is on there so that you know that those are the common literacy work standards. Okay. Alrighty. I'm going to stop the recording.
Christy has her hands up.
Yes, I'm just going to stop the recording now. So I'm going to do that, and then I will happily answer questions at this point. Let's just